Welcome back to the BSD YouTube show. As always, your host, Patrick Kerbler. And I'm joined by Tim Aiden and Jarrett Slanina. Our first time talking since we got in here on Sunday and talked about the firing of James Franklin. It still doesn't feel real. And I guess that's where we will start. I mean, we have a lot to talk about tonight from, again, recapping the firing. We'll talk about Pat Kraft and Terry Smith meeting with the media on Monday. We'll even talk about the football game that's coming up this week. But before we get into some of that stuff, I just want to see where are we at mentally? Where are we at emotionally? How are we doing in the wake of one of the more shocking firings in college football history, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like when we met up on Sunday to chat, I hadn't really processed, what exactly took place. So, just having that kind of settle in a little bit. You can't say, I feel any more positive about the situation, unfortunately. Still feel really terrible for how things shook out and the players, and really feel for Drew Aller too, just the way to see his season ending like that. That injury kind of got overshadowed in a way with everything going on and immediately jumping in the coaching search. I mean, no matter how you feel about Aller, whether you thought he was, he's got a bright NFL future, or you don't think he was, worthy of a starting quarterback job at Penn State. I mean, you can't argue with just how much passion the guy played with, and just how much he wanted to win and how much he seemed to love playing at Penn State. So just really rough to kind of see things shake out for him, and just the rest of the team, and obviously not having anywhere near the season that they worked for.
Yeah, I'd echo Jay. It's still surreal to me a few days later, and I've spent the last few days just watching countless YouTube videos or reading, countless blog posts on, online just about, their thoughts and who they think should be the next guy at Penn State. And I guess I'm also starting to lose my train of thought over the whole thing myself, as you can tell. So it's,
No, it's been a whirlwind. It really has been a whirlwind. That's like the funny thing of like, we still have 6 more games of Penn State football.
It's Franklin fired overload for me right now. That's what it is. And coaching search candidates. So
no, yeah, and that's and I think that's like the thing, and it dawned on me today of like, just all these names are getting thrown out there for the coach, and in normal times, right, a coaching search generally takes about a week. I think like the last major coaching search that Penn State had, Penn State basketball, not even Penn State football, Penn State basketball, I think Shrewsbury left like March 23rd, and I'm pretty sure Rhodes was hired like the very end of March. I think it was just before April 1.
He was hired on my birthday, March 29th. I remember.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so right, that was it was basically a week. And that coaching search, I remember, was exhausting and exhilarating and fun. And that's like the weird part with this of like, I wake up every day, I'm like, ooh, can't wait to see like new coaching. Like now, who wants to be Penn State's head coach? Who are we going after now? And it's just like, hold on, look at the date. It's October 15th. Like there's going to be so much that is going to go on between now and, let's just say December 1st when Penn State makes a hire. Of candidates that will pop up, they'll drop off, they'll pop up again, the agents will toss them back in. And then like the other part of it is the fact that, again, we have 6 weeks left of the season. Like someone who looks like a good candidate right now, maybe by the end of the season will not be. I think as Penn State fans, we can all really attest to the fact that 3 games can, really change the season. Like 3 games ago, Penn State was ranked number 2 in the country. 3 games later, James Franklin is fired and no longer the head coach. So I think the important part of like the coaching search, and we're not going to get too far into the coaching search stuff tonight. Like I was thinking about maybe playing a game with you guys. We'll see where we go, but there's going to be a lot of twists and turns, and we have a lot of time. And as entertaining as it's going to be, it's probably one of those things of you can ignore it until like November 15th, a month from now, and you will be okay. And at that point, that's when the information actually becomes important of who Penn State's going to get. So. I know last time we talked, we mentioned like a bunch of different people. Is there anyone since then that has kind of piqued your interest as far as like realistic people go? I know there was the On3 report that Penn State, I love that Demon said Penn State is going to go after, may go after Marcus Freeman. Like, what type of reporting is that? Not to call anyone's journalistic integrity. Penn State may go after Marcus Freeman. Is there anyone realistic out there that's popped up that we didn't talk about on Sundays that you're kind of like, oh, he would be pretty cool?
I did see Eli Drinkwitz's name getting bandied about and also hinted at by some people in the know on the Lions 24/7 board that Penn State has reached out to him a little bit. So he's a name, and it intrigues me. I'm not just saying that because Bo Prabula is Missouri starting quarterback, but he's had some pretty good offenses while there. He's done a good job getting a lot out of that Missouri program, especially in a tough conference like the SEC. And like, yep, I was hoping you put that picture up, Pat. There's for those of you that are listening to this, Pat just showed a high school yearbook photo of Eli Drinkwitz rocking a Penn State sweatshirt. And just for context, Eli Drinkwitz is an Arkansas native. So
is this real is the question. That was my first reaction.
It sounds real enough to me. Now, whether, that ends up being the hire is another story. But from what I'm gathering, just when I read, just from people hinting, like, I know Matt Rule is the name everyone's throwing out there saying, oh, well, if I was a betting man, I'd put all my money on Matt Rule. He's going to be the guy in the end. But Kraft is going to swing for the fences on some bigger fish, and maybe some big fish you may not even be thinking of. And I guess Marcus Freeman could be one of them, but it could be someone we're not even thinking about right now. And so you're not firing a guy like James Franklin just to simply hire your buddy at Nebraska who has an even worse record against ranked opponents than James Franklin. So, I mean, I don't think Rule is like the number one candidate here. He could, if they strike out in their first few candidates or top choices, then yeah, maybe they do fall back on him. And again, I know I'm getting in deep into coaching search stuff. I didn't mean to do, but just
no, it's all good.
You might be surprised by what names you may end up hearing as guys that Kraft's taking a swing at. They're gonna, they got the money. Money's not going to be an issue here. So,
yeah, I feel the same way because it's still, that's one thing I'm struggling to wrap my head around is by we I mean Penn State fired a coach with a very successful resume, outside of the top 10 record, obviously, but someone who won a ton of games and really brought the program along, given a potential $50 million buyout. And it just seems strange that you would make that move if Matt Rule and Matt Campbell are the top two candidates, the top two likely candidates. So I'm thinking there might be some possibilities we're just not considering it at this moment, or some potential changes that we may not anticipate coming, I guess.
Yeah, and that, again, it all kind of goes back to what I was saying of like these next couple of weeks are going to be very important because Nebraska plays at Minnesota on Friday night. Like that could be a Nebraska loss, and all of a sudden, right? Like Matt Rule, if he goes like 8-4 or 7-5, right? They're 5-1 right now, but say they finish 7-5 or 8-4. I don't even think Pat Kraft, with his ties to Matt Rule and Matt Rule's ties to Penn State, can swing that. Now, on the other hand, right? Say that Nebraska, they have no ranked opponents left. USC is Iowa, Penn State. I mean, it depends upon your thoughts of Penn State, right? Those are their toughest opponents. So if Nebraska goes 11-1 and makes the playoffs, like, okay, that's a little bit different of a story, but then you deal with the scheduling of the playoff. Will Penn State want to wait until, December 22nd at the earliest to make that move? Because I don't think any standing head coach is going to leave a team that is in the playoff until the season's over. So just a lot of time left. The only thing I do want to say as far as like the coaching search goes, like, I don't necessarily think that it needs to be you fire James Franklin to hire someone that is worse, because I don't think that you can necessarily compare. And this isn't just a Matt Rule thing, but a Matt Campbell thing, a Eli Drinkwitz thing, whoever it might be. You can't compare what Franklin was doing at Penn State to what these guys are doing at their schools, right? Like Eli Drinkwitz has never been to the playoffs, but he's also coaching at Missouri. Matt Rule has really bad records against ranked teams. He's also ever been at a program for 3 years, and those programs were Temple, which was terrible, Baylor, which was absolutely terrible when he got there, and Nebraska, which didn't win more than 5 games in like six seasons or something like that. So I think like the context is just always important of like, unless they're going to get Kirby Smart or Kellen DeBoer or, insert whatever coach there, like no one's going to be like clearly above James Franklin. It's about how they translate to Penn State. So I do understand the angst with Matt Rule. He's not like super high on my list, but I do think that he's like a good coach. But I know I'm rambling here, but then like the other side of this is like, it was just also time to fire James. Like if the goal was to fire James once they had someone, if the goal was to fire James only when you had someone that was ready to go, that was clearly better, when are you making that move? Because that move might never come. Like the same way that when Oregon hired Dan Lanning, nobody knew who that Dan Lanning was going to be this. When Ohio State, internally hires Ryan Day, when Notre Dame internally hires Marcus Freeman, right? Like you make these moves, you don't know what they're going to be. And you just have to trust that, the athletic department and Pat Kraft in particular can, decipher through all that and make a good pick. So speaking of Pat Kraft, though, he and Terry Smith met with the media this week, and Pat Kraft in particular gave a fiery speech, I would say, to put it lightly. What were and I have some quotes that I can read out, some main takeaways, but what were some of your guys' takeaways from Kraft's remarks?
I don't know if I took away too much because, honestly, there's a lot of CEO speak, a lot of he's definitely received a lot of media training, as anyone in his position should. That's not a knock against him or anything. It just feels like you're going to get a lot of
we are the best.
Exactly. A lot of general, almost non-answers in a way.
It's like when a defensive coordinator gets hired, Jarrett, and they're like, we're going to have an attacking, aggressive defense. Like,
yes,
you never have a defense coordinator that does not want to be attacking aggressive.
Exactly. So, he and actually, you mentioned this on your random thoughts on that press conference earlier today, but he did state that it'll be a national search. So I guess that's important that they'll go beyond putting an ad in the Center Daily Times.
If you are from Montana, you could be hired.
Yes. Yeah, so that part really made me laugh too.
That's like how we're a national podcast. That's
exactly.
This is a national podcast.
But I would say my main takeaway is that and again, this is probably a very general thing to say, but his main goal is to win a national championship. And he really believes that this program is at a level that they can do that. And he's going to make every decision to do everything they can to reach that goal.
Yeah, I guess from Pat's my impression of Pat's presser was just like obviously he wants to win a natty as while he's the AD at Penn State, and this isn't a move you make if you're not if your goal isn't to swing for the fences. So like I said, it's why I'm not, buying all the, Matt Rule's a favorite stuff that's going around. So and just, when I said the person that they target and maybe even end up hiring ultimately could be someone we're not even thinking about right now. That will be impressive. But yeah, just in general, I enjoyed I'll say he definitely had a lot of passion, and you could tell it was a decision that didn't come lightly for him. One they probably hoped he wouldn't have had to make mid-season like this, but like we all were suggesting, it was time. It had to be done. And I also noted like how, he got emotional when someone asked him how much Drew Aller meant to the program. And you can tell he's a guy who, we kind of like to, we enjoy and kind of laugh at how involved he is, like how you see him like on the sidelines at football and wrestling, basketball games. But it's not just, just to, for entertainment. He genuinely cares about the Penn State athletes, the coaches, the staff people. Like he genuinely cares about Penn State athletics. Like, you could sense it in the tone of his voice throughout the entire press conference. And so, to be honest, I felt, however this search may end, I'm feeling confident that he will have done his due diligence and have swung for the fences to get the best guy possible.
Yeah, and that's why you start a search at this point. And like you said, Tim, right? Nobody wanted to be in the spot where it's October 15th and Penn State's looking for a new coach. But I did like hearing that, he said that right, and you're a CEO, you're a boss, when you make a decision, you have to like fully make it. You can't like half-ass a decision. And I think that's why he decided to pull the plug. Two main things beyond the, obviously just love the passion and the fieriness out of him. Again, sorely needed at Penn State at this point. Two main things that I thought were interesting that he brought up. One of them being that he was asked about the buyout, and he said that the university is not paying, for it. It's an athletics issue. Athletics is paying for it. He didn't come out and say this, but I know that there's a ridiculous rumor on Twitter that Adidas is paying for it. That is not true. Adidas's contract hasn't even started with Penn State yet. Like, that would be Adidas is not
July
paying
1st.
So.
That's when it starts, I believe. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's not until the summer, next summer. So yeah, Adidas is not paying for this. And the other side of the buyout thing, and I've seen a lot of national media, right? That it's easy to put in a headline like Penn State is paying James Franklin $50 million to not coach. Technically, I guess sort of true, but he unlike like Jimbo Fisher, he was not due like that lump sum. So he's just simply being paid as is. Once he gets a new job, Penn State will only pay the difference. So everything we know about James Franklin is that he, loves coaching, and he's going to jump right back into it. Whether I wouldn't be shocked if it's this coming cycle, if the right job comes open, right? If for whatever reason, like an Auburn or a Florida, I think those would be tough swings, just given how close, just timing wise.
But I think UNC, UCLA, those are two names I could definitely see him landing.
But right, like even if he wants to wait a year and maybe like help his brand kind of get up a bit, I don't think James Franklin's going to be out of a job long, and he's likely going to command around the same salary that he was getting at Penn State. So I think Penn State will pay closer to $0 million to James than they will the $50 million. So that's the other important part of it. The other thing that stuck out to me about Kraft, and I think this was the most pointed part of his press conference, that, beyond the normal, AD stuff. And I mentioned this in my random thoughts. I'm going to read the quote. He said, "Recruiting will always be a pillar here. We want someone who will attract elite talent, retain players in the NIL era, and make Penn State a destination. This is also about the modern era of college football. The next coach needs to be able to maximize elite level resources, attack the transfer portal, and can develop at the highest level." And then he later said, "We want someone who honors our tradition but isn't afraid to evolve." I think that was the most pointed part of his press conference. And I think that shows, as he said, it was not just about these 3 games. I think that there was, you look at how Penn State has I know everyone says James Franklin's an elite recruiter, and he is a very good recruiter. Ever since NIL has come in, he has not recruited at the level that he was prior. I tweeted this out before James got fired. His last 5 classes at Penn State, their average rating, according to 24/7 Sports, is 14th. That's good. That is a good rating. Do you know what Joe Paterno's last 5 classes were, as he was a geriatric old man? 16th. Very little difference between what Joe Paterno was doing as he was working 10-hour weeks, 3 of those being at the game on Saturday, and what James has done during the NIL era. It's clearly something that he struggles with, being a relationship guy. And clearly Pat Kraft disagrees with how he's gone about some recruiting stuff, how active he's been in the transfer portal. And, it's a double-edged sword, right? You bring in too many guys, you upset the apple cart, the locker room gets lost. I'm not saying that James did it the wrong way, but clearly he was not aligned. Talk about alignment, was not aligned with what Pat Kraft's thoughts were. So those are my takeaways from Pat. What about Terry Smith? Terry Smith then met. What were our thoughts on Terry Smith, his press conference, and just overall Terry Smith taking over?
One thing that I was really glad to hear from Smith's press conference was him mentioning that Franklin addressed the team on Sunday. Sometimes they don't get the chance to do that, and I just think that is just a really poor decision. You consider all the hours and everything they put into the program, all the blood, sweat, and tears. No matter how things ended, unless they're being chased out of town in handcuffs or something, you let them address the team one last time. So I was really glad to hear that. I put down a few different notes. The one thing, this is a little out of order. The one thing that did caught my attention is that he mentioned AJ Harris getting benched. So he just came out and said that. I don't know if Franklin Style would have ever, he kind of would have alluded to it, but kind of danced around it. He just basically said, yeah, he got beat early in the game by Northwestern receiver, so he's going to sit on the bench. So, the other thing too is I was happy to hear, and you kind of wonder how he'll implement this, but he did say something like, "Let's have fun," And it's important that at this time the players are probably in a state with everything going on that they kind of forgotten that football is really fun game to play, and that's why they're at this level. I'd imagine is because they all have a love and deep passion at some point, even though this season hasn't been this way. At some point not too long ago, football was very fun for them. So just interesting to see if we'll shake things up in practice, just loosen up the team, and maybe a change in message will do them some good.
Jarrett, the exact quote was, "We have to get our grittiness back, our toughness, our swag, and most importantly, we have to go have fun, enjoy playing the game of football." And sometimes, right, life is that easy, especially when you're playing sports. Like,
it kind of reminded me of there's a scene in Friday Night Lights, the series, not the movie, where I can't remember what season or what exactly was going on, but the vibes were just not in a good place for the team. And Coach Taylor just basically says, okay, just stops practice, says, okay, defensive lineman, you're playing receiver, or receivers, you're playing offensive line, just kind of moves everyone, has them switch jerseys, and they basically just go out and play game of 7-on-7 and just have a blast, and they totally loosen up and get their focus back. And again, I'm talking about a fictional series here, but I just gave me that thought of, let's hopefully this week of practice won't be all gloom and doom, won't be extremely painful, and maybe they can just kind of, take a little break, have some fun, and just kind of try to get the vibes right again.
I mean, Jarrett, you think back to Penn State, Ohio State in 2011 in the wake of, Joe Paterno's firing and the scandal coming out and stuff like that. And when Penn State went to Columbus, fresh off a loss against Nebraska, what was an emotional week. To Jay Paterno's credit, Jay Paterno, offense coordinator, right? They bring out the Wildcat and yes, it caught Ohio State off guards, but I think it was also just like let's get a little crazy. Let's do something different. And you have Curtis Drake and Bill Bellin back there taking Wildcat snaps. So not that I expect, Wildcat snaps necessarily from Penn State, but yeah, just it's a game. Football is a game, and you can simply just have fun. Tim, thoughts on Terry Smith taking over?
I mean, I like it. I was hoping he would be the guy when Franklin got fired. Not just because he has associate head coach in his title, but he's he said it in his his opening remarks. He's former Penn State player, class of '91. His dad's class is 1968. Justin King, his stepson, is played in the mid 2000s, and then I guess his daughter just graduated. So Penn State runs deep in his family, so it's good that they promoted a guy like him. And more important, I think Jared already talked about the grittiness and having fun and all that, but I feel like the way he was talking, it's almost like he seems to feel that whoever they hire, it's going to keep him on board with the next staff. And I certainly would hope that whoever it is that ends up getting a head coaching job is smart enough to keep Terry Smith around, while you transition into things, just like how when Bill O'Brien took over, he kept Larry Johnson and Ron Vanderlinden around, and that really helped with the whole transitioning process. And trying to remember, I don't know if Franklin I think Franklin did offer LT to stay on, but he left, and
I was going to say Franklin and LJ had a little bit more past history where they weren't the fondest of each other, but I do believe there was an attempt at least. But no, I would bet 1,000 real dollars, not BSD bucks, $1,000 that the next coach, whoever it is, will tell Terry Smith, beg Terry Smith, please stay on. Because I mean, even beyond like the Penn State, right, being a Penn State and all that. I mean, he's just a fantastic cornerback coach. Like you think about where Penn State was at with cornerbacks. I know, like when I was growing up, and certainly when you guys were, like it was not a glamour position at Penn State. And I mean, it's always, I just assume that cornerbacks are going to be extreme for Penn State at this point with Terry Smith. So yeah, hopefully Penn State can win some games. He does a good job, but certainly will be staying on staff if the next coach has his druthers, I imagine. Before we move on to what the actual game that's coming on Saturday, please subscribe to the BSD YouTube channel. You're watching this right now. Subscribe, like the video. It helps us out a ton. If you're already subscribed and you're already liking the videos, then thumbs up to you guys. We love you guys. And if you're on Spotify, you're on Apple, give us a 5-star review. That helps as well. Gets the name out there that we are the only Penn State podcast in the world, because that's what we want to get out there.
Last I saw, Pat, we had 300. I checked today. We had 360 views, and I'm thinking just a few short weeks ago, I think we had hit 250. We had just hit 250, so we've gained over 100 new subscribers in just the last few weeks. I wonder how many of those are just like Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame fans who are just wallowing in our misery and just want to get alerts whenever we go live. But still, I mean, thank you to all of you who have, the 100 plus you who have subscribed in the last few weeks. I've said, I'm going to continue to say this. There are countless Penn State college football YouTube shows out there, and the fact that you choosing to watch us and subscribe to us and like our videos, we appreciate that and don't take that for granted. So thank you once again.
Who would have thought that bad business for Penn State football is good business for us? If you would have said, right,
sells, Pat. I mean, you read the news, watch the news. So
apparently it does. If you had told me 3 weeks ago that we gained 100 subscribers, I'd be like, ooh, we're 6-0, undefeated. Let's go. We're really having success. But instead, we are whatever this is. Anyway, considering what this is, we do have a football game this Saturday. Penn State travels to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes for, is it a 7:00 kick on?
It's 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 o'clock. It's like actually like not a 7:30 kickoff. It's
nope, 7 sharp.
And I believe just Peacock, not the NBC / Peacock.
Yeah, it's streaming only.
Arrangements if needed.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have Iowa. What are we expecting out of this game? I'll stop there. Actually, what are we expecting out of this game? Because I mean, it is your classic Iowa team, right? Like, offense is not that great, but they can run the ball at a decent level. They're gonna really attempt to establish the run. Gronowski is not the greatest pass in the world, so again, this just fits everything that an Iowa offense is. Defense really strong, especially when stopping the run. So I don't even think that this is like what we have to really talk about, like Iowa so much as like what the hell are we supposed to expect from Penn State? And that could be said for every single game this week, this year, but it's really this week. It's like, who knows? Yeah,
it feels like this week they're in an especially tight spot because they have a quarterback who will be making their first start at Kinnick Stadium, which is a very hostile, very difficult place to play against a defense that pretty much year in, year out makes it very difficult to move the ball against. And even the best offenses that they play, they typically get out of rhythm with the actual experienced quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know if you guys got to watch much of the Indiana-Iowa game a few weeks ago. It was on before right before Penn State played Oregon, which is weird to think how different things were when we were watching that game at 3:30 p.m. that Saturday. But I mean, it was the week that Fernando Mendoza became the Heisman favorite, and they made him look like someone who shouldn't even be in the conversation. I mean, he ended up pulling out the win at the end, and they had Indiana scored a long touchdown pass for the go-ahead lead. That was ultimately the game winner. But yeah, they held them to 13 points most of the game up until that late touchdown with I want to say about 4 minutes left to put them ahead. So yeah, their defense is very good this year. They're only allowing 13 points a game. Good against both the pass and the run. And again, you got your young quarterback making his first stop and making that your first start in that environment. And then on top of that, it's supposed to be a pretty wet day. So it's going to be chance of showers and even some thunderstorms throughout the evening is the current forecast. So yeah, and the other tough thing about, you take that out of the picture, out of the equation. But Penn State really hasn't had a consistent run. They haven't been able to lean on the offensive line and really allow them to produce. So it's not like they can just say, well, we'll just kind of avoid the pass. I mean, I don't think they're going to be in a position to do that. So I'm pretty concerned about what Penn State's going to be able to accomplish offensively. So I'm not really I don't have too many optimistic things to say about that the matchup when Penn State's offense is on the field right now.
This feels oddly enough, and I can't believe I'm saying this. It feels like the late Paterno years, like specifically, I think it was 2010. They went to Iowa for a night game. They were starting Rob Bolden. I think it was his freshman year. It just feels like that. Like it, and that was like kind of, I don't say Iowa's heyday, but that was like the second iteration of like the good Ferentz teams where it felt like they just always had like two NFL starting defensive ends, and I mean they were still Iowa on offense, but yeah, when this line opened. And this was, Saturday, late Saturday night before Franklin was fired. Penn State was, I think they opened at 3.5-point favorites, which was just like bonkers, like completely bonkers. It's dropped down mightily since then. I think Iowa is now the 3.5-point favorite. So certainly everyone is, on Iowa. Tim, what are you looking for in this game?
I'm looking to see. I'm going to see what what the offense looks like. They're more. Do we see them actually try to throw the ball more than 5 yards downfield? Like, do they look like a group that's like? Are they gonna try to play more of their strengths? Like, just beat Katron the Rock, 15, 20 times.
Yeah. Will this be the week we finally see Katron get the touches that he should be getting?
I mean, to be fair, he started getting more of the touches last week against Northwestern, but I feel like just make him your workhorse back. Throw in a couple. I'm sure Kolnicki has, if he didn't already, he's probably have free reign to throw in some wrinkle or two that maybe he would, I don't know, for whatever reason he was being held back on throwing in. I don't know, just surprise me with something like take a shot downfield early or something. But I'm just hoping to see, in general, maybe on both sides, but I just want to see a team that's playing more loose, playing fun, playing with a purpose, like playing like they want to be there. Because the last couple of weeks, especially, they've not looked like a team that's even wanted to be out there playing football. Like we've been saying before, like football should be fun. Like I want to see them just having some fun, just not caring about the result, but just just giving it their best effort and just not being afraid to make a mistake out there. And who knows what'll happen. Defensively, I guess I'd like to see them, hopefully do a better job against the run game. Iowa's not much of a passing team, but you have a couple guys who can run the ball pretty well. Kamari Moulton being their top back. And so they're, that we saw how they struggled with Northwestern and UCLA the past couple of weeks. UCLA is more because of Nico just scrambling a bunch, but Northwestern was kind of gashing them up the middle last week, especially in the fourth quarter when the defense is a little more gassed. So I think you want to try and not allow as many sustained drives from Iowa and try to get them out the field more quickly. So, I think it really comes down to, though, I just want to see some effort, them playing loose, having fun.
Yeah, I think the effort and just the seeing an obvious passion for the game. I think that's been lacking since the Oregon loss. Even the UCLA game, the defense missed I don't know how many tackles, more than I've seen a Penn State defense miss in quite a long time. So actually, going back to the offense real quick though, Penn State does have a receiver on this roster that had 142 yards and 2 touchdown catches against Iowa last year in one Devontae Ross. So I don't know if he's going to replicate that, but he definitely torched them last year at Troy, and maybe somehow, some way we can get a repeat of that performance. And he has been their big play threat this year. It hasn't been consistent enough, but look at the end of the Oregon game, and he had that huge run and catch, catch and run rather, to put him up against Northwestern before the defense gave up that drive. So, yeah,
I'll tell you what, Jared.
Hype, or give
right. I was saying, how would you feel like if they say Penn State's opening drives like play action, like deep ball to Ross for a touchdown? I mean, that kind of changes the dynamic of the game to me.
It feels like something like that is kind of necessary. Just get the team in the game, and also Iowa's not the type of team that likes to play from behind. Obviously, they kind of like to drag their opponents.
They're not a quick strike offense
in the mud, and kind of make them play their game. And a lot of times it's keep them in close and making a play or two at the end. So they're not a team that wants to play from behind. That's for sure.
I do think that there is something to, and Terry Smith said this as well, right? Like that the media is not going to come in after these games, and the questions aren't going to be about the team being lethargic and effort. If Penn State loses, it's going to be because the other team is better than them. I do think it kind of sucks for Terry that it's like, oh, your first thing is going to Iowa. Like I feel like I would feel a lot better about like how Ed Orgeron would anytime he became like an interim head coach somewhere, it's just like, oh yeah, put the money on Ed Orgeron. He'll get those guys playing. I think that'd be a lot easier if Penn State was hosting Northwestern, that I could talk myself into, some new wrinkles and, maybe getting Kobe Howard and Tyser Denmark involved, some exciting young wide receivers that haven't gotten as much run as we maybe have hoped for. I just think going to Iowa and, a night game, and Jared, as you said, like the weather aspect of it, and a new starting quarterback. I mean, that is like the big, I don't want to say variable, but like a big thing that I feel like we may all be overlooking of that what could, really cause Penn State to lose, right? Drew Aller was starting this game. Not that Drew was playing, fantastically this year, but it's just a tough place to go for your first start. So as much as I am hopeful for, the team not to look lethargic and to look loose, I think it can be easy to look that way when you're getting strangled by, Iowa's defense. So I have this Iowa 23, Penn State 10. I feel like I said before, I kind of feel like it's going to feel like those, early 2010 Penn State Iowa games where Iowa just was, just the better team to be honest with you. I think that this Penn State team has shown that they're not very good. And as much as Terry Smith, is I think a good motivator, and I think he's a good coach. I don't, after UCLA and Northwestern, I don't have much hope that anything is going to really drastically change. So I have Iowa in this one. What are you guys thinking?
I have almost the same exact score. I was wrapping up the game preview before we started this, and I was initially going to go 24-6 Iowa, changed to 24-10 just because of the thought of my man Devontae Ross scoring on a reverse or on I can't or Tim Scenario gets a big play action pass at some point. So I'll go 24-10, but I'm not expecting too much, and I just think the offense is really going to struggle to do a lot this game, and the defense, we may see a better effort from them, but you're only going to be able to do too much if the offense is struggling and there's a lot of 3-and-outs and they're just on the field against a team like Iowa for most of the night. And that's assuming the defense plays at a high level and can actually, do okay against the run, which they haven't been, especially the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I have this a little closer. I still have Iowa winning 22-16. And yeah, I said 22-16 because I feel like whenever Penn State and Iowa play, there's always a
Has to be
safety.
ugly. Yeah.
Good point.
That's be some weird ugly scoregami type score. So that's what popped into my head. I think Penn State can keep this one from getting out of hand. Like I said, I do think they get in the end zone once. They'll have had some drive stall and be forced to settle for field goals. But thankfully, we got Ryan Barker, who's pretty money, so I think he'll knock down a few field goals. But my bigger concerns are just, I think, more so with the defense and just how they've struggled to stop the run game, and I'm just not sure they'll patch that up in just 1 week. Iowa's offense may not be dynamic, but I think they'll do enough to wear them down over 4 quarters and, ultimately keep them at bay.
All right. All of us picking against Penn State. What a crazy, bizarre season this has been. Let's get to our national picks for the week. I'll read our records. I'm not proud of this. The fact that we're so bad at this, so incredibly bad. Tim, you're 7-8, and you're our only hope of being 500 because Jared is 5-10, and I am 4-11. Just absolutely dreadful. This is not surprising to me, though. I've known this for multiple years, as does my my FanDuel account. But first game we go to is Ole Miss at Georgia, clash of SEC heavyweights. Georgia is a 7.5-point favorite over undefeated Ole Miss. Tim, we'll start with you. Where are you? What are you thinking for this game?
I'm taking Georgia in this one. I wasn't impressed with
to cover as well.
To cover?
Yeah, to cover.
Yeah, I'm taking Georgia to cover. Yeah, Georgia to cover. To win and cover. And I wasn't impressed with how Ole Miss struggled to barely get by Washington State last week at home. I guess I just trust the Dogs in Athens with their defense, and I don't know. I just get a gut feeling it's Georgia's going to cover that spread.
I'm having a little bit of just some difficulty because I feel like both these teams are so similar in the fact that some weeks they'll look very good, they could definitely win the SEC, and then some weeks you think I don't think this is a playoff team even. So I'm going to go. I'll take Ole Miss and the 7.5. If it was a field goal spread or something like that, I would probably just go ahead and take the Dogs. But if it's over a touchdown, I'll take Ole Miss.
Jared, I have bad news for you. I'm also taking Ole Miss and the points. So that's going to be a loser. So if I would say fade us to everyone listening to this. Definitely take Georgia minus 7.5. No, I do. Yeah, 7.5 just feels like too big of a spread for. I get that it's at Georgia, and right, that's where it's been bumped up from. What would be like a 3-point game at a neutral site. They're saying, okay, a couple extra points, but I don't know. Everyone in the SEC, the SEC really is it's almost like the Big 12. I mean, it's obviously much better than Big 12, but the idea of I don't know, anything could happen. It would not surprise me. So I think Ole Miss can do enough to keep this game within a touchdown. So I'll go with Ole Miss as well. We then go to South Bend, Indiana for USC traveling to Notre Dame. I think this is the last game that they have scheduled, if I understand correctly, at least the way USC and Notre Dame fans are fighting online. It's either this year or next year, but something's changing. So who do we have in this one? Notre Dame, a 9.5-point favorite.
I'm taking Notre Dame. Again, this is a big spread, which makes it a little bit, tricky, but I do feel like Notre Dame has a pretty phenomenal offense. I've been really impressed with how far Carr has come since the season began. Bryce Love is, perhaps the best player in college football this year. So another thing about Notre Dame is I think they are just going to try to do their best to just throttle every team they play the rest of the year to get back in the playoff picture after an 0-2 start. Their defense has definitely dropped off from last season, so I wouldn't be shocked if this does turn into a shootout, but I think Notre Dame's going to be able to pull this one out and win by at least 10, definitely. Probably win by a couple touchdowns, 14, 17, 21, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I got to say, as fight on, Jared. I got the Trojans covering. I think Notre Dame wins, but I think it's going to be a close shootout type of game. And I'm seeing I'm looking at some stats here. USC is the second in the country in passing yards per game, and Notre Dame is 105th in pass defense. I think USC is going to put up their share of points on the Irish, but like I said, Notre Dame's offense has definitely looked pretty good too, and USC also is a shaky defense themselves. So, I'll take the Irish by I'm thinking something, I don't know, maybe 42-37 type shootout win.
I have Notre Dame in this as well. 9.5 is a lot against what is, a solid USC team, right? Just coming off this Michigan win. But Lincoln Riley at USC on the road seems like it never works out. And I just like one of you said, I can't remember who, but Notre Dame is going to be going for solid points too. So even if this game is a tight game in the fourth quarter, if Notre Dame has the chance to, make it look a little bit more impressive than it actually is, if they could win by 14 points instead of winning by 7 and setting on the ball, I think that they tried to do that. So I like Notre Dame here to cover the 9.5 as well. And then we go back to the SEC for Tennessee at Alabama. I'll go with my pick first. I'm going to take Alabama in this. I think Tennessee is kind of fraudy. They played well, right, when they hosted Georgia, but I think going on the road to Alabama is just going to be a tough one for them. For this Alabama team that feels like every single week they have a big game, and they've been passing the test ever since that Florida State loss. They've been passing the test. So I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide and the 8.5 here too. Tim, we'll go to you. What are your thoughts?
Roll Tide. I mean, it's that loss to Florida State's looking more and more like a fluke than, with each passing week and with each impressive win they keep picking up. So,
yeah, I really want to take Tennessee in the points, especially considering this is such a just a really fun SEC rivalry game. But another thing about Tennessee too is their missed field goal against Georgia from being undefeated right now. But
yeah.
In the last couple of weeks, they've struggled to get past Mississippi State. They struggled to get past Arkansas. The rest, Patrick, you mentioned there, you feel like they're a little bit fraudulent, and they really haven't had much of a schedule, many challenges in the schedule outside of Georgia, which they kind of let that game slip through their fingers at home. So Alabama's been very impressive, especially these last few weeks. We know DeBoer's track record, so I'll take Alabama winning by 10 or so at least.
All right. Those are our picks.
One game we all agree on. So
yes, the one game that we all agree on. All going with Alabama this week. Let's see here. Let's play before we sign off. We're gonna do a little game of this or that. I'm gonna name you a coach. I'll name you another coach. You can tell me one or the other. Matt Rule or Brian Kelly?
I take Matt Rule because I would not be able to stomach Brian Kelly.
I'm in the same boat, Jared. I mean,
I just take Matt Rule. I take Rich Kotite over Brian Kelly.
Damn, that's a deep cut, Jared.
Okay,
Rich Kotite's probably the nicest guy, but whenever I need to think of a really bad football coach, that's always the name that pops in my head.
That was really. Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I didn't have anything.
I was gonna say that was really the only one I want to ask. I just want to make sure we're not going crazy, because I've seen some people, I'm not gonna say who, maybe a former BSC writer named Clay Sortig has said, he want to hate Brian Kelly, he thinks he would have some success here. My thing, with the coach, I'm fine if he's an a-hole. Right, Kirk Cignetti, a-hole. I think I can like Kirk Cignetti, though. I don't think I can like Brian Kelly at all. And even 100%. beyond the fact of okay, he's already done the leave one elite place to go to another elite place, one of the elite jobs, and it hasn't worked there. So why would we try that here? Even beyond that, I just don't. I really don't want to have to root for Brian Kelly because I don't like Brian Kelly. And sometimes it's as simple as that. So
Yeah,
okay,
I can already
Cincinnati
picture Brian Kelly at his introductory press conference with Penn State, like,
doing a yin
can't wait to go try some peachy paterno at the creamery.
Just
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel
okay.
like Cignetti and Lanning, like, sure, like they can like rub people the wrong way, but if he's your guy, you really like him. You know,
Yeah.
you kind of feel like it's more of like a competitive fire as opposed to just being, you know, an a-hole, which I think of Brian Kelly and many people do.
I think he just actually is. There was that ESPN article from probably like 4 years back at this point, but I think it was Robert Saleh was on one of his staffs as a GA, and Brian Kelly invited the GAs over for like a dinner party, and they thought it was to actually attend the party, and said it was like to
park
ballet
cars.
and park cars and shovel snow because it was supposed to snow or something like just
yeah, they were saying they're both like very poor GAs sharing an apartment, like eating, you know, bagels for dinner every night, and they're all excited to get, you know, go to this nice party and eat a big meal, and they just show up and he's like, okay, park cars for everyone in the cold and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, so yeah, that was the only one I wanted to ask. I just want to make sure that the role hate has not gone too far, because we cannot let ourselves get Brian Kelly. But all right, that's all I got. That's all we got. We will be back on Saturday. I am around on Saturday. Unfortunately, I will be on after the game. I'm now realizing that means we're going to be on at like 10:30, which I don't love that, but we'll be on. We will be on to recap whatever the hell happens with whatever the hell this Penn State team does. So we'll see you then.